Hi listener, this is From Ideology to Unity, a spiritual journey where we let go of ideological doctrine and ego in favour of meaning, purpose and unity as a whole. So today I'm doing a reading about the Root Chakra in Living the Law of One, 101, The Choice by Carla Rueckhart. I could have finished the energy body chapter that I was doing yesterday, but I just feel like it just feels like it's better right now to start with the red ray. I was actually tempted to skip straight to the green ray. I was kind of drawn towards that as well, but I feel like this will help people better if I start with red and go up. And the music in the background is from a YouTube channel, Meditative Mind. They do great music, and this is one of their Root Chakra isotronic tones, basically. Soul Frigo Mandala Sound Bath Series. There you go. This is the 396 Hertz one from September 2019. I've got other ones. I wasn't sure exactly which one to use, but this seemed like a good one. I did change the turn on original sound, so hopefully this works out. Though I haven't really checked this yet, so we'll see. All right. So without further ado, this section is Chapter 4: The Red Ray Energy Center. Light through you. There's a quote here. We lift you a beacon, and that beacon is yourself. We ask you to see yourself for the first time, clearly and lucidly. Light courses through you, not from you. There is no effort to being who you are. There is only the removal of blockage from the passage of light. You see, like it's not that light shines forth from us. It shines through us when there's less blocking the light, right? And it shines through us, I suspect, in a multi-dimensional sense. So where is it shining from? It's kind of shining from you like a portal, right? And you're like and the more blockages you have in your energy body, the more traumas and the negative emotions that you have pent up that you haven't released, the less the light can get through. Like a narrower bandwidth or something. Anyway, the energy body that is living. The energy body is that living rainbow of energy centers nestled in a row within its pipeline, which runs along our physical bodies from the base of our spines to the top of our heads. Love light energy flows in infinite supply through this energy pipeline and feeds our energy bodies richly as long as we do not constrict or block the flow of vital energy. And of course that's the problem a lot of us have, really, those blockages, and I hope this helps. We want to help our energy bodies stay clear. Our energy bodies as a whole will stay most clear when we feel relaxed and unworried concerning the issues in our lives. Even if amazing amounts of catalysts are flying by, we are doing well energetically speaking, if we can stay fearless, self-confident and trusting the ultimate goodness of all that is occurring. Choosing this attitude or viewpoint of fearlessness is fundamental to being a player. There are sound reasons for choosing this attitude of trust, self-confidence and faith that all is well. We will explore those reasons in further books of this series, Living the Law of One, 102, The Outer Work, and Living the Law of One, 103, The Inner Work. Footnote: Carla was not able to finish the series before her passing, and these books were never published. For now, we need to know only that it is helpful to be relaxed and self-confident so that our energy pipelines will stay open. Especially at times like this, you know. Our energy body is not the same thing as our physical body, although the two are connected. For the purpose of getting information we need as a player in order to graduate, we are staying focused on how to keep the energy body clear and the love light energy flowing through our chakras. We will discuss techniques for dealing with the various types of physical and emotional catalysts that engage our chakras, in energy expenditures in 102. We will discuss how to work with our faculties of higher consciousness in order to have help dealing with this physical and emotional catalyst in 103. For now, we shall stay focused on the fundamental job, keeping the energy body's pipeline open and flowing. So about the books she never wrote, perhaps it's because she didn't really need to write them. Maybe that's why she died. That sounds a bit morbid and heartless, but I mean, looking at this on a wider perspective, because people are incarnated to get things done, right? Maybe she's, who knows, maybe she's back here already in another incarnation doing that. Maybe someone else, and maybe another soul is doing that work. And I suspect fundamentally, like, because she and Don Elkins and I can't remember the other guy's name, sorry. If you ever listen to this, sorry I forgot your name. Jim McCarty. They were leading the way, right? And there were many following them. Like they were like the front of the wedge, right? And so she didn't have to have all that burden for herself anymore. So that's what I feel is perhaps why, anyway. The first learning is simply to set a high priority and respect for the needs of our energy bodies, especially the need to keep them clear of blockage and constriction. We do not have to solve all our problems to graduate. We only have to keep our energy bodies unconstricted enough so that we can get the guidance we need in order to make good ethical choices as they come into our lives. And I'll add that the hero's journey is something to keep in mind here, because I do think that there's a software, essentially, metaphorically speaking, that sort of throws choices at us at different points in our lives. Like, and there's this whole different archetypes play out. And the hero's journey is like in our lives, we go through these cycles. There's a story to our life. I mean, it goes down to the smaller levels as well. Like, every day is a story in a sense, and every month is a story. Do you know what I mean? Like, and like as we go through these cycles, we can learn new things. We go through this journey. We go through catalysts in various forms. We are tested in various ways, and we come across these choices. And every time we come across these choices, what we choose to do at a certain juncture, it has consequences for our development and what happens in our lives. And it relates to what I was reading just there. Because good choices, ethical choices, as they come up in our lives. So we can make moves on a multi-dimensional chessboard. Serving others, well, I mean, you could serve yourself, but it's ultimately not really in your best interest, in my opinion, to do that. So anyway, but also that there's this cycle going round of your journey, and to make it's like a game board, like you know those board games right? You have to go round. To make progress round, you've got to make progress in learning certain things. And then you go to like the next step, and then you've got to learn new things. And new things will come up in your life, and new choices based on lessons you need to learn. Naturally, we are constantly tempted to tense up about situations or conversations as they occur. But as players, we are aware of this tension, that this tension is not a good condition for our energy bodies. We know that the more we keep our energy bodies open, the more we will have access to consciousness and its help in understanding ourselves. The more clearly we understand ourselves as purely human personalities, the more accurately we can evaluate incoming situations and make sound choices as to how to respond in a polarized fashion. This understanding does not require us to judge ourselves as an Old Testament judge would or condemn. Rather, this understanding asks us to love and accept ourselves as we are. Naturally, we are all invested in becoming better people. We wish to progress and improve. However, the process of coming to understand ourselves better requires a continuous clearing of energy centers to such an extent that light, also called love light energy, can flow through the first 3 energy centers and up into the heart chakra. And that is the most important part. I mean, once you've opened the heart, it's like, at this stage, anyway, the hardest part is like done. And we can go to like joyfully explore like third eye and stuff. If you open your third eye before opening your heart, well, you might have made things more difficult for yourself. That's certainly what I did. Or maybe that's part of your journey. I don't know. That's the path you can take. But yeah, it's yeah, you wanna. It's easier to deal with that third eye stuff when you've got an open heart. Otherwise, it's kind of like drawing negativity to you, like a beacon. Yeah, and that can be kind of difficult to deal with. And maybe that if you do deal with it, maybe it'll speed up your development, but that's a lot of testing. It's like being a Nimrod for other people's negativity, but also your own, I guess. That's my experience anyway. Therefore, accepting others, well, that's not what I read, but therefore accepting ourselves just as we are from moment to moment is the first step towards being able to think like a player of the game. To condemn ourselves for self-perceived errors is to contract and constrict our bodies. To accept ourselves is to relax our energy bodies so that the light may flow through these first 3 chakras and into the heart chakra. We may see our errors and determine to correct our choices next time without condemning ourselves for making those errors this time. So, I mean, that's the lesson I've been learning, and you may find that yourself. You may have already found that yourself. You know, when we're harsh on ourselves for the mistakes we've made, even if those mistakes were hurting other people, it's ultimately detrimental, because suppose you make a mistake and you snap at someone when, I mean, you've got one of those junctures, right? You make a mistake and you hurt someone else, and then you're like, oh shit, what have I done? Oh no, it's so terrible. And then that constricts, I suppose that constricts your energy flow. And suppose that makes it harder to access your heart, and suppose it actually leads to you actually hurting other people more, right? So basically beating yourself up and shaming yourself, or letting yourself to be shamed by others over mistakes you've made, even if those mistakes have hurt people, is the worst thing to do. Completely the worst thing to do. But the way we're being taught in our society about how to deal with like mistakes that were made and stuff is completely whack. Completely whack. And it's deliberately fostered like this by dark workers, by the cabal, so that we will get more traumatized and traumatize each other more. And they want that, right? Because the more that happens, the more people keep coming back here, but traumatized and controllable. And it suits their dark games. But we're not going to dwell too much on that, because what we're focusing on here is how to heal, clear the blockages, and bring energy up to our heart chakra. And that's the key thing. I mean, the using the third eye and stuff, that's great and interesting and all, but it's not the important part of this ascension, in my opinion. Like, if every single human on Earth in the next 10 years opened their hearts fully, right? But no one in the next 1,000 years were able to, okay, I don't know, like, but no one in the same amount of time were able to use their, like, in this, no one, but, oh wait, I messed up, didn't I? If everyone alive now were able to fully open their hearts, but they weren't able to use, like, the third eye at all, or whatever, and get beyond that, that would be fine, honestly, because we'd still all be able to ascend, right? Because the fourth chakra is fundamentally linked to the fourth density, which we're moving into. Did I get a slight constriction now? I don't know. I'm not sure why that would happen. Anyway, our feelings, just as they are, deserve respect. However, often our first knee-jerk reaction to the incoming catalyst is distorted by predisposing experiences. These prior experiences have shaped our habits of response gradually, until we may well forget that these responses are not necessarily our currently preferred responses. I suppose that's conditioning, right? Of sort. And we live in a society, so it's not all us either. Although we ultimately choose how we respond to catalysts, but I suppose free will correlates with awakening, so it's not an absolute thing, I don't think. Another thing is that it can be frustrating at others who react to knee-jerk reactions even more than you do. But that itself is a knee-jerk reaction, so yeah. I mean, a mistake that a lot of light workers can make, I mean, I'm not an exception to this, it is basically judging those who have a lower frequency to your own, because they might even have a slightly lower thing, or they might be expressing, like, something they haven't let go of yet, but they might actually be doing better than you think. And you'll be like, oh wow, they're really low frequency, right? Better stay away from them. But the thing is, like, everyone have bad days. So I mean, like, and if you're judging them, you're like, are you really doing much better if that's what you're doing? Anyway. Consequently, it is a good idea to review our feelings as they arise. We may find that we wish to change our initial responses from the unaware and unawakened responses of negative emotions to the more positive choices which serve our energy bodies better. In my opinion, something I've been doing recently is, it's kind of like, I get this negative emotion come up, and I'm like, I honor that emotion. You honor it, or you almost like you treat it like a person. You're like, I honor you, right? And it's kind of like, it's okay to feel it, right? It's okay to feel negative emotion. You can't expect to be feeling great all the time. And what do you do? Suppose if you've got a negative emotion coming up, imagine that negative emotion as a person. If you, like, start whipping that part of you for showing itself to your conscious, what you're saying is you're rejecting that part of yourself, and you're basically being cruel to a part of yourself that's wounded, and making that part of yourself more wounded. which means it will come up again to a larger degree in the future. And we don't want to do that, because fundamentally the reason why you're getting these negative emotions is because they're already within you, and they're bubbling up from your subconscious into your conscious. Right? Now, sometimes you get negative emotions that come in from the collective conscious and come into your body, but those still need to be cleared as well. Otherwise, they'll collect within you and become yours. You know, like. So I feel that it's really important to honor and to show love to the feel as much as you can to the negative feelings, and allow yourself to feel them, even if it's hard. You know. Because if you run away, you're not really, and just plaster it over with a distraction or like medication or alcohol or something, it's not going to help. And if you reject it, it's not going to help. You can't be like love and light all the time. You can't. It's just, you're human. And there's all these negative emotions flying around, and there's all this catalyst flying around, and there's wounds that you have within that you may not have healed yet. And we just have to accept that reality and let ourselves heal in time, you know? Yeah. A small example of this is the catalyst of the bad landlord. As I had one some years ago now, and perhaps many of you had also had a bad landlord at some point. Say we have a landlord from whom we have a leasing. Stumbling over my words there. Say we have a landlord from whom we have leased an apartment. But we need to deal with this man often, and we are reminded every time we see him of all the times he has cheated us or failed to make repairs as promised. We have been outwardly polite to him, perhaps, but we also have been allowing ourselves to be angry at him inwardly and to think mean thoughts about him. It seems harmless to think these thoughts. However, our energy body reacts to these thoughts by constricting and reducing the flow of healthy energy to the chakra pipeline. Perhaps we discuss this with a friend or a family member. Then we share our mean thoughts. As we talk, our energy body further constricts. As players, we know that to let our minds dwell on these mean thoughts is to continue to constrict one or more of our energy centers. In this case of the bad landlord, it would be 2 centers. The orange ray of relationships and the yellow ray of legal and contractual relationships. Knowing this does not automatically cause us to stop constrictive emotions of anger and revenge. We ourselves are the only agents who can interrupt that process and replace it with a new emotion. That new habit in the case of the bad landlord is simply to remember that the universe is unitive in nature. We are all one. To be angry at our landlord is to be angry at an extended part of ourselves. Therefore, if we wish to work on the issue of the bad landlord, the Confederation suggests that we find that energy within our own natures and work on it internally within ourselves. Yeah, well, I agree. This is perplexing to think about at first. How do we locate the bad landlord within ourselves? We do not cheat people. We do not break our word. We do not knowingly tell a lie. Yet within us, says the Confederation, is a complete assortment of all the attributes, both positive and negative, possible within the human condition. We truly are all one. So, all these things that we attribute to other people, especially people we might feel have hurt us or what have you, like, we have the potential to do all those things, and there's something like that within us. Like, if you view yourself as a highly honest person, there's a part of you that's really deceptive. And you might look at other people who are deceptive and be like, oh, that's fucking disgusting. How could they do that? But, like, you could do that. Be grateful that you're not. And this is powerful. I mean, it's good to be reminded of that. Because, like, I can forget that. Even when you're doing inner work, you can look at things that remind you of what you've been through and relate to that. But to relate to those you feel have hurt you, that's another thing. And to relate to them and be like, I see myself in them as well. That's powerful, right? And there's something I've heard about called metta meditation. That's two T's. Is really helpful for that. We and the bad landlord are one, and what is within him is also within us. We just do not choose in our daily lives to act out that part of our universal nature. Nevertheless, it is in there, and the right combination of circumstances might bring it out in us as well. And so, to set out to balance and accept this energy within ourselves. And so we set out. This internalization of spiritual work is a very helpful discipline in keeping the energy pipeline open to the flow of light energy. The mental exercise of working upon the bad landlord in ourselves is a practice in which there is no judgment. For now we are just looking at the energy of cheating and lying, the essence of that. We are blaming no one for it, but seeing its essence. In my opinion, part of that is, it's about when we identify positively as something. In the case of the landlord, if someone's like looking at their landlord and they're like, bastard, right? Like, they're identifying as not being, they're identifying as honest and as kind and decent, etc. And identifying the landlord as not those things. So it's not just that we identify ourselves a certain way, but we are identifying other people a certain way. And since other people are in a sense part of ourselves, we are in a sense identifying ourselves that way as well. So identity isn't just about us. It's about how we compare ourselves in an identity to others. But when we take identity out of the picture, we allow ourselves to have a more bird's eye, crow's eye view of things, and we can see it from above, and we can see it in a more detached way. And that allows that viewing of it as energy and looking at the qualities of dishonesty as just traits or just energies, right? That anyone can express potentially. And yeah, just looking at the energy of cheating and lying, the essence of that. Like, that, and identity gets in the way of us doing that process that Carla Rueckhart described, in my opinion. It's not the only thing that gets in the way, but it can do. There was a time, somewhere in our past journey, when we were at least tempted to cheat or tell a lie. We worked to locate that within ourselves and ask for the healing of that distortion. I just did then. We now have responded to the bad landlord catalyst in a way which does not constrict our energy bodies or keep us in emotional uproar. We shall not change the habits of careless thoughts overnight, so we must be patient with ourselves, right? Because if we're angry with ourselves for feeling, especially, give an example, suppose you get angry at people and you're like, oh, angry is not good, being angry at people isn't good, that's just like low vibe and low frequency, right? And then you're like, I'm angry that, and then you get angry at yourself for feeling that way, like, obviously that's not going to help, that feeds it, right? That's just an example. However, even the sincere but faulty attempts to recall the unity of us and the landlord at a soul level relaxes the energy bodies and relaxes our energy bodies and lets the light energy come on through our energy pipelines or chakra bodies and up through the heart, our first goal. We tend to be creatures of habit, and constrictions or blockages in our energy bodies are likely to be repetitive. Every time we see that bad landlord, for instance, we constrict our energy bodies with our stormy thoughts. These habitual thoughts, which tend to block energy, can be seen as addictions. We are, for instance, unable to think of that landlord without getting upset, so we have become addicted to being upset and thinking mean thoughts. Ken Keyes, whose Handbook to Higher Consciousness offers good ways to work with our feelings, suggests that our habitual responses tend to escalate from habits and preferences into addictions. The road to ceasing the addictive habits and thoughts is to downgrade our addictions back into preferences. In this case, we would be downgrading our addiction to the response of anger and vengeance to the non-addicted response of a preference not to have that landlord. This preference does not create anger or the desire for revenge. It gives us a smile. I mean, you're imagining a positive scenario in which something better than what you're currently experiencing is occurring. Of course it's going to feel good. Whereas if you're just dwelling on how negative it is and you're not like, right? Like, that's how you're going to feel. And maybe it feeds your identity. But consider, how you view yourself, which is basically what your identity is, in terms of the law of attraction, has a great deal of effect on what you experience. So, downgrading our addictions to negative emotion, which can be, in my opinion, sort of slotted in as part of our identity. Like, if we downgrade that, part of that is downgrading our identity to a preference as well. And if we do that, we're not attached to feeling that way. I mean, what is an addiction if not an attachment to feeling a certain way, right? And, okay, it may be an addiction to, for example, cocaine, right? But really, an addiction to cocaine is addiction to the feeling that you get from cocaine, right? So it's all an addiction to a feeling. Our energy pipelines stay open and we move on. We shall find ourselves reverting back to these addictive behaviors often, even after we have identified them. Habits are not made in a day and are not broken without some perseverance. But we all need to know, in order to start playing the game well in this regard, all we need to know is that we need to address all constrictions on our energy body in order to clear them and restore energy flow through the pipeline. Sorry, I'm feeling a little bit of constriction in my third eye right now. I don't know why. I just or in that forehead area. So yeah. We shall find ourselves reverting back to these. Speaking in general, we can balance the effect of prior experiences on our judgment by becoming aware of our own process of making choices. We will look at ways that we do that with each energy center. As we relax and release contraction around a choice, we free up the flow of energy through the energy center within which we are. working. We can use the techniques of reflection, contemplation, and the setting of new intentions to balance the energies and to clear those blockages. We do not have to solve the dilemmas which make our energy bodies contract in order to graduate. We have only to keep the energy body sufficiently open that light energy can flow into the heart chakra and allow in the strength to open and, as Walt Whitman said, invite our soul. Yeah, so what do I think of all that? What do I feel about that? So this is a good introduction, in my opinion, to the red ray and to the chakras in general, because it doesn't just talk about red ray, but it talks about how it fits in with the rest of it and how we can deal with our emotions. And this is really important for inner work. Like, even just the section of red is gold. It's great. Like, you could read just this, not the book, just this section I read in the last few minutes. If you get to know that and you really apply that could do great. That'd be great for you, right? This isn't just a book to read, This book is like, it's a manual for awakening, in my opinion. It's great. And we all come across these really testing situations, and ultimately, if we're kind to ourselves, and if we allow ourselves to recognize that we don't have to react in certain ways, we do actually have a choice. We may be used to reacting a certain way, but it's always a choice, right? It's always a choice. It's always a choice. And we might not even be aware of how we're doing it. It just might feel that we're being taken for a ride. But we have the controls. We just need to get used to driving. It's like there's a self-driving car, and it's driving along, like you're in a roller coaster of emotions about what you're experiencing as you see what you see going on outside, and you're like, oh my god, I don't like this, what I'm seeing, or whatever. But there's an option where you can actually choose where to drive, right? You don't have to go where it takes you. Like, you don't just need to let your ego do it, And then that part about we become addicted to our negative emotions. I mean, like, our identity is because, like, it's how we get a sense of meaning in our lives, right? And we can get so addicted to that. And it's not even that it makes us feel good. It just makes us feel... Maybe it's a survival mechanism, really. But do you want to just be stuck in survival mode? Or do you want to go beyond that? What this does, this helps us understand, or at least start understanding, how to move beyond it. So that's my opinion of what the bit I was reading just there. But we're not done with the red array, by no means. So yeah. Let's continue. The red ray and sexuality. There's another quote from Quote. The amount of sheer energy vibrating betwixt Earth and physical vehicle is astounding. Yet it cannot be acknowledged and used nearly so well by one who is working upon upper chakras unless that entity has the patience, the humility, the determination to come into contact with that earth, that soil of self. For the sexual identity is as powerful and as unique as part of the individual spirit or soul as any incarnationally expressed energy. This is the energy which creates a healthy mind or a healthy body, the energy that gives us a primal yes to being. This is, moreover, as are all energies, a sacred energy, and the sexual intercourse is as the Eucharist of Red Ray, the Holy Communion of the body. This union recapitulates the oneness of earth and sky, the oneness of male and female, and the oneness of reaching and waiting. The rays or energy centers of the energy body are living entities which are constantly shifting in clarity, intensity of color, and rate of vibration. In appearance, all of the rays are described as being like flowers with their petals, or like crystals with their regular facets. The chakras have some qualities of both in these examples. These rays are equally important, none being better than another because it is higher in the energy body. We need them all to be open and flowing. The Red Ray Energy Center is described by the Ra group as being the foundation ray. This is the first ray of the energy body which receives the incoming light energy from the earth. The Creator radiates this light energy to the Logos of our Sun, which then radiates the individuated light energy to the earth, which then radiates the light energy to us. The energy flow from the Creator, Logos, Sun, and Earth enters the energy body at the Red Ray. The Red Ray Energy Center is located where the legs join at the base of the spine. This center will not grow more complex in terms of how it looks and works than it is today, no matter how spiritually mature we become. Both the first and last chakras, Red Ray and Violet Ray, are readouts. The Red Ray is a starting readout of our vital and physical energy levels. The Violet Ray is the exit readout of the status of the whole array of our rays, red through violet. The inner chakras, orange through indigo, are far more able to be developed by the seeker as he matures. The inner rays have a lot of room to grow in complexity as well as clarity, color accuracy and intensity. We may add petals to the flower as the energy of that ray which matures within us. Energy within us matures and develops along regular patterns of increasing complexity. We may create ever more detailed facets within the crystalline structures of our rays as our energy becomes more skillfully directed by us in our daily play on the game board. This game board, in my opinion, as I've already said, but I feel like repeating it, it's worth keeping in mind that it fundamentally is connected to the journey of life, the hero's journey. And if we can consider the law of one and the chakras at the same time with the hero's journey and Jungian archetypes and insights from Jungian psychology, if you can fit them all together in an organic way, I feel like that picture will be really powerful and helpful for people. I can see it in a sense. I can see it. But connecting it all together organically, I'm not sure exactly how to do it yet. But I feel that it would be really, really helpful for people. The inner chakras, orange to indigo, are far more able to be developed by the seeker as he matures. The inner rays have a lot of room to grow in complexity as well as clarity, color accuracy and intensity. Yeah, I've already read that. The changes in our energy flow are caused by our reactions to incoming catalyst. Each thought we entertain potentially can change our energy's body coloration and its state of openness. Each color The colour of each of our energy centres varies in a couple of different ways. All red ray centres, energy centres for instance, are red. However, the intensity of that colour may vary, as well as its clarity and its closeness to the true colour, which is the exact vibration and the of red ray, which came with us from the factory at birth. These qualities of the colours vary because of the intensity, clarity, and accuracy of our thoughts and other energetic expenditures like actions and words. So yeah, it's not just about law of attraction in terms of how we act and think. It's about, it all affects us internally, directly. This true colour is also the vibration of the red ray of planet Earth and its energy. The closer our personal red ray vibration approaches the red ray vibration of first density, the more easily we can accept the Creator's energy as it comes into our energy body, like red ray. It is useful for the player to cultivate the connection between human energy body, the human energy body, and the energy body, as well as the sameness of our earth, or physicality, and the earth whence we sprang. A rapid way that all of us can deepen the respect we have for ourselves as human beings of the tribe of humans on planet Earth is to allow ourselves to feel this energetic connection between our human bodies and the body of the earth itself. Picture in your mind the energy flowing up from the earth, up the feet and legs and through the red ray center, on its way upwards through the energy body. Then picture intentionally linking back into planet Earth by sending and answering thankful energy back down our legs into the earth, creating energetic roots like a plant's. Feel free to tell her that you love her. She might respond. Our bodies are made of her material, and she, as the living entity of Terra, Mother Earth or Gaia, loves us unconditionally as her children. Can you feel it? We can feel her love and strength as we root down into the earth, linking with the earth's red ray by visualization. The red ray density is the density of the elements and the powers, as the Native Americans call them, the chemical elements and the four magical elements or powers of air, water, fire, and earth. These are associated with the four directions of east, west, north, and south. This earthly, density-wide red ray connection with the red ray of our individual energy bodies is the source of powerful and natural the source of powerful natural resources for the player. Our combined physical and energetic bodies are the point of connection for much inner work which we can do by feeling our oneness with the earth on which we live and asking for her sacred elements and powers to make us stronger. The energy, that's not what it says, but sure. The awareness of this connection to the elements and powers also opens the way to magical work we may wish to undertake later in the game. We shall talk more of this in the third book of this series, 103, The Inner Work. Knowing that we are part of the great dance of life, we can better enter into it with a sense of creating style and grace in our movements as we dance. That, the third. Okay, me. I'm stumbling. Huh. It's like whenever I don't go softly, I start stumbling. So maybe a bit of feminine energy is needed here. But we've all got both of those sides to us, so. That the red ray chakra is basically a readout does not mean that it is easy to keep the red ray open. Indeed, a lot of us get stuck with blockages at red ray, either because of our feelings about sexuality or our feelings about living on planet Earth. Sexuality and surviving are the energies which the red ray center handles. Our most primal instincts reside in this chakra. We instinctively desire to procreate and preserve our species by red ray sexual congress. We instinctively desire to survive. I chose to discuss sexuality first of these two types of red ray energy because in lab tests, animals have repeatedly chosen to stimulate themselves sexually or take a substance like cocaine at the expense of eating, and as a result have suffered ill health or died. In a 1990 study of the effects of cocaine, the Canadian author stated, before I read it out, I had this idea just now, like, that, you know what I was saying about identity, and we get addicted to identity? Perhaps we really, truly do value our identities higher than our lives. For all of the survival instincts, our identities, who we are, we really do value that higher. And, because we get addicted to it. We really do. And, I did mention cocaine. I mentioned cocaine, and so did she, so. Don't be like that clown in Death Clock, like, seriously, just don't. In one experiment, 3 monkeys were put in cages where they were allowed to press only one of 2 levers, one producing an infusion of cocaine, the other producing food pellets, every 15 minutes. During the 8-day experiment, all 3 monkeys chose cocaine almost exclusively. Even on trials where they did not choose cocaine, the monkeys did not press the food lever. The animals lost weight and displayed strange, stereotyped behaviors. In other experiments, monkeys and rats have self-administered cocaine over periods of several days until they died of convulsions. And something came to me. So, I've sensed that quite soon it's going to be like an explosion out of negative emotions that have been pent up for a long time. I suspect what's going to trigger it will be some kind of information, some kind of disclosure. I mean, this age is about information, right? The age of Aquarius. That water is information. And so it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be bumpy. It's already bumpy, right? And suppose you're addicted to identity, and you're addicted to the feelings you get with it, even if they're negative. And all this negativity pent up within you comes to the surface, and with other people it might be more intense. It's all going on around the whole world at the same time. An explosion. And suppose there's this rising frequency residually that is pushing it all up to the surface. It would be like everyone's going crazy, right? And it's like, in my opinion, a sort of withdrawal symptoms beginning. All our previous identities, a way of doing things, it's starting to collapse. What do we have in its stead? Well, for a period, people won't have anything. So, that's what I saw. In studies where sexual stimulation was offered to lab animals as an option to eating, results were similar, with animals sickening and dying, and for the same reason, choosing the addictive substance instead of food. We can become addicted to sex, just as we can become addicted to other powerful substances that change our brain chemistry. And beyond no illusion, our identities change our brain chemistry. People have been hexed, people have been under spells. I'm not the only one to be saying this, I'm kind of inspired by what I've been listening to. And that negativity has only been fueled. But ultimately I think people will be benefiting from it all coming to the surface, because at least you'll be aware of it. Because you see, a lot of people have been acting out things they're not even aware of that they're feeling. If you feel something that you didn't know you were feeling, and you identify it, well, that's a big step in the right direction. That's a rise of awareness. And so this explosion out of negative emotion, it's actually a good thing. It will actually help the ascension. It will help the psychological health of people. And the more someone is acting explosive, it's likely it's going to help them more. Although not necessarily. But, yeah. We as players seek to avoid addictions. We intend to allow our sexual feelings and energies to develop naturally as they occur, rather than allowing ourselves to become addicted to the expression of this powerful energy. It may seem that the more sexual activity we have, the more our red ray is, but in many cases this is not so. Sexual addicts, either of pornography or of sexual relations with another, actually create blockages at their red ray because they overactivate it with repetitive and artificially created desires. Well, yeah, I mean, I've experienced that. There's rampant pornography addiction. I mean, what happens if you constrict? In widespread society, you constrict red ray. Well, that affects everything above it. Everything. It undermines society as a whole. And I would suggest the cabal has been going out of their way to promote pornography as much as possible. And the internet has allowed so much ease of access to that. I mean, also consider, why do you think they've been encouraging clubs so much? Nightclubs, the night scene. And they get all these people to go to university. Everyone go to university, do these random courses. And go out clubbing, to the bar. Hookup culture, right? It's fun, right? The women will just be expressing their identity. That it's liberating, right? And while, there's just like demonization of men engaging in that, and I don't agree with demonization, but I do see that there's a problem with that being excessive. All this overactivation of, all this constriction of red ray, I mean, they're actively encouraging it. It's deliberate. But we are participants in this. We can't just put the blame outside to the cabal either. We allow ourselves to be under the sway of this and to constrict ourselves, right? I mean, we're not on Orange Ray yet, but Orange Ray is about our relations with other people as well. And when this is sexual, when that gets constricted, like, I mean, some people are addicted to the dating scene. That pretty constricts their Orange Ray. I suppose we're all on a journey, but yeah, some things are fucked, man. But luckily, we're going to be clearing this out in coming years. Despite what it seems, I generally think we'll pass the worst of it. Energetically speaking. But for things to be cleared out, when they're being cleared out, things will seem worse. Because they'll be visible much more. We're already seeing the signs of this. It is fairly common in our sexually provocative and explicit media environment. It is easy to move from experiencing our sexuality as a naturally arising desire to being stimulated by the media into an artificially created and insatiable sexual craving for more and more and more. If our sexual energies are out for a while, the player will let them be out. He will allow his desire to flow naturally. At those times, letting Red Ray remain silent without sexual expression is the way to keep the energy flowing through Red Ray. We do not have to act sexually in order to have our Red Ray be open and happy. We simply need to accept the desires, or lack of desires, which our Red Ray offers us with a sense of their rightness. So if you've got low sex drive, that's okay. Be okay with it. Don't worry about it. Be okay with it. If you've got high sex drive, don't worry about it. But just, I suppose it's just a better balance, right? Balance within yourself. Even complete celibacy is no hindrance to having an open Red Ray chakra if the celibate seeker affirms and is at peace with his or her sexuality. The sexual instinct is bred into the very bones of each of us. When all goes well with us, and we come into the moment of sexual orgasm, we hopefully feel the immortal yes of James Joyce's Molly Bloom in his novel Ulysses, sounding through our inner thoughts and emotions. Ra says, "In the green ray activated being, there is the potential for a direct and simple analogue of what you may call joy. The spiritual or metaphysical nature which exists in intelligent infinity." I meant to say energy, but it's all infinite ultimately, right? Sorry, I'll carry on the quote. Exists within intelligent energy. Exists in energy, intelligent energy. Blah. Okay. Exists in intelligent infinity, which I missaid again. Intelligent energy. This is a great aid to comprehension of a truer nature of beingness. To the Confederation, the true nature of beingness is always the creator experiencing itself. To confirm the sacred worth of sexuality is to open the Red Ray chakra and let the energy pour through. We need to affirm our physical sexuality. Readers, tighten your sphincters. Okay. Sorry, look, Carla said it, right? Carla's saying it. I'm just reading it. I'm the messenger here, all right? Women, we just did a Kegel squeezing of the walls of our vaginas. Men, you have just squeezed your manhood from the inside. Was that not the beginning of a great feeling? Ladies and gentlemen, was that not the beginning of a great feeling, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't that energy a great asset to have in this life? Is it not a powerful thing to feel pleasure of sexual contact? Let's not talk about how I might have made you feel if you're listening to this. Okay. We need to realize that we are dealing with enormously powerful forces within ourselves as we work with the energy of sexuality. We are profoundly sexual creatures. The sexual drive is basic to our human nature. Whether we are glad of it or not, our sex drive will fill our thoughts and emotions with colour and fire again and again throughout our lives. It is easy and, on one level, correct to call this basic energy lust. However, when we use this word lust, we generally intend it judgmentally. And in this discussion of purely red ray sexuality, we specifically do not mean to invoke any judgment. At this basic level, we are not looking at the emotional viewpoint behind the feelings of desire. We are simply looking at this energy as it naturally arises. And as it naturally arises, we are told in the Bible, the Creator checked the system out and found that it was good. I mean, you're going to argue with that? God said it was oh so good. Indeed, it is the best kind of good. It is sacred. It is in a unified creation. All things are sacred. Sexual energy in and of itself is sacred. We as humans generally ignore that sacred aspect, or at least try to work around it from time to time. But we cannot take its sacredness away. Our bodies are sacred, and the sexual energy they carry is sacred. In a creation made of unconditional love, that sacredness has a nature of love. We, as people carrying that energy in our bodies, have the ability to remember that this energy is sacred and to honor it. Honor it. The potential of sex to become sacred in our actual experience is activated by remembering and honoring that sacredness in ourselves. Sex is a source of pleasure and healing, naturally built into the way our bodies work and into our earthly experience on the most fundamental of levels. What a generous Creator to include such a freely available and inbuilt source of feeling good. Sexual play, with its intimacy and free exchanging of energies, is a gift indeed. The best and most fun things in life on this planet are free, to paraphrase the old song. At first glance, it would seem that these are reasons enough to honor and respect our sexuality. However, this is not generally the case. We often feel tense and uncomfortable with our sexuality, and yet, as Crow says, our sexuality is the earth and the soil of the self. Well, not the self, of self. The earth and soil of self. It is our roots and our beginning. We are all conceived as a result of the Creator granting life to the seed our fathers sowed within our mother's wombs. Our very existence depends upon the natural function of the red ray center. It is utterly natural. Nothing to be ashamed of about it. We need to find a peace with our sexuality. As players working strictly with the red ray chakra, our goal in dealing with our sexuality is to release all concern we have about how we look or any other concern that constricts the natural flow of energy through red ray. Instead, we need to focus upon enjoying the gift of our sexuality. Staying with the simple, joyful gusto, brio, playfulness and honest enjoyment of our sexuality is our concern as a player in terms of keeping our red ray centers open and flowing well. This is a challenging thing to do, for reasons which will become obvious later, as we discuss the workings of the orange ray chakra. For now, let us simply say that as players, we want to come into a really relaxed and affirming peace concerning ourselves as sexual beings. As players, we want to feel good about our sexuality. Our goal is to keep that precious flow of energy going. When those sexual energies feel threatened, we lose our yes. We can easily react to sexual stimuli by shutting down the flow of vital energy through our energy bodies if we feel badly about being sexual beings. It is a priority not to do that. And so there are these two extremes, I suppose, that have been laid out that imbalance our red ray, essentially. And one is an over use of it, basically, and an addiction to it, but another is being ashamed or feeling negative about that part of us as well. It's okay. Whatever we feel, it's okay. It's how we react to how we feel that matters. It's how we act as well. And also how we treat ourselves energetically, that matters. Are we going to be cruel to ourselves about what we feel? That applies to whatever we feel. We're making progress. So, what do I think of that section? Well, it was interesting to read. We all have that sexual part of us. And, suppose someone was a eunuch. They didn't have... Suppose they got testicular cancer and they didn't have testicles, right? Suppose someone had no sexual organs, right? If they were not okay with that fact, that would constrict their red ray. But if they accepted it and honored that fact, that would help. And fundamentally, primal pleasures, primal joy, there's other ways to express red ray other than sexuality anyway. So, yeah. Alright, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to the loo. But if you're watching this on, if you're listening to this on the, if you're listening, you won't even hear this, because I'm going to edit it out. Alrighty. Alright. Back from my loo break. What was I going to say about that? Yeah, the reason why I don't edit out my videos is honestly, it's a technical issue and I don't know how to really fix it. Well, I mean, I could work it out, but whatever. This is the genuine, like, you could see how it really is, I guess, from me recording, and there's something honest about that, I feel. So anyway, maybe you got a break too, because I've been going on for quite a while, huh? I mean, you could always pause it at any point, obviously, so there's that. Actually, where was I? Oh, right, we're going to a new section. We're not that, we're actually kind of close to the end of this section. So, if you listen to this all in one go, well done. Yeah. The Red Ray and survival. Huh. L/Lima channeled through our research on September 22nd, 1985. Oh, I don't know who that is. I don't know how that being channeled. When an entity is in possession of mental despair and has not moved from that dynamic into a productive mode of thinking, analyzing, feeling and acting, that despair becomes incorporated within the body complex. Thence comes disease and ultimately death. Therefore, the wages of a continued despair are the death of the body. So, corona, despair, disease. Maybe it's ultimately perpetuated by despair, huh? I don't know, that's not the full picture, but I feel that that's part of the picture anyway. Part of it. How do you feel about living life on this planet Earth? On planet Earth? When we think of survival instincts, we generally think of the fight or flight mechanism built into our adrenaline response. This is an emergency situation, when our survival is physically threatened. We have all felt the massive and system-wide reaction, where the mouth dries and stomach settles, and we are instantly more alert than we could have imagined in the moment before we experience a stimulus that caused the emergency response. What's that? What's that? You know? In the moment of that response, we can fight, we can defend and kill. We can also choose flight and be inspired to run from the danger like the wind. When our adrenaline reaction is only induced by truly life-threatening emergencies, we are normally at rest in terms of our red ray survival instincts, and our red ray remains open. However, in the increasingly pressurized first world culture of which we are a part, the adrenaline reaction becomes chronically half-triggered by stress, so that we are close to the fight or flight response on a daily basis. You might relate to that. This is exhausting to our energy bodies and tends gradually to constrict the red ray. It wears down the spirit and induces a chronic habitual state of mild depression, which insidiously robs us of our joy. When we do not wish to be here on earth, we contract around our discontent. Maybe that's ultimately how they try to do depopulation. despair. Oh, that's fucked up, isn't it? That's really perhaps what their psyops are about. That contraction squeezes the energy pipeline at the red ray level, sometimes to the point of complete blockage. The French have a phrase which is particularly apt for describing the sheer exuberant love of life, élan vital, or vital energy. Élan, huh? When we love and enjoy our lives, our vital energy soars. The love light of the Creator flows freely through the person who is enjoying his life. We may not consider living on planet Earth to be a blessing, even if we do not experience the chronic depression spoken of above. In many people's experiences, events occur which temporarily soar their love of life. We all go through such times of situational depression. The loss of a loved one, a job, or a home is an event almost guaranteed to sink our spirits. If we are caught up in negative red ray emotions like despair, grief, hopelessness, we feel terrible. Little or no energy can move up the energy body to the heart. It is difficult even to remember better times, or to look ahead and hope for the good times to come. In fact, doing so requires the discipline of a player. We have talked about remembering a larger viewpoint, the viewpoint of the player. The chief feature of despair is its lack of perspective. When we get depressed, our world shrinks down to hold only the feelings of hopelessness and despair which have overtaken us. The player in this situation consciously chooses to fix his mind upon faith and hope as a discipline. This attitude of faith clears the red ray energy center. Sorry, I'm just remembering things. We've all gone through that, but you know, I just recollected how I got through stuff, you know, with faith and hope. The fight or flight mechanism is shut down and the energy again flows freely. As the energy once again flows freely, we become able again to access the energy of the heart and orient ourselves to our guidance. And we find our joy again, using our will to choose faith. Note that the faith which we choose to have is not faith in anything. It is a simple faith that all is well, and that what is occurring in our lives is helpful, even if it does not seem so at first glance. And you know, an understanding that a lot of what we experience is pretty negative can actually be catalyst given by the universe for our growth, and we can choose how we respond to it, but it's given to us for that. That awareness is actually really important because it allows us the prospect of knowing that all is well, whatever happens. And that can surely be tested, but we have that option. The source of momentary depression can be due to issues coming through any of the three lower chakras. We can be suicidal in a visceral way, which has no focus, which is a red ray feeling of despair. We can feel suicidal because of a relationship or because of a legal relationship, such as the marriage relationship, or a job has been ended. Whatever the ray of origin, this despair registers in the energy body as red ray blockage. The one thing that is central as regards clearing the red ray of despair is to realize that these despairing and somebody shoot me kinds of emotions and thoughts constrict the energy body at the red ray level. Certainly, they also constrict the energy body higher up, as the energy or third ray also. At the second or third ray also. But the clearing of the blockage needs to begin at the bottom. with red ray. When we perceive that we are constricting energy at the red ray level in our energy bodies, then we need to tackle our basic attitudes first, before going into whys and wherefores of relationships, marriages, and so forth. We need to look at whatever's happening in our minds. Our minds have constricted our energy flow by accepting the story of hopelessness and helplessness which our emotions are telling us. When I am working with my bouts with despair, I find it helps to pretend that the little soap opera of my life is being filmed. And then I thought, I don't need to worry about it right now, because it is being filmed. I create a sense of perspective for myself by becoming the director of the film. I ask the cameraman to dolly back. I relinquish the need to stay with that close-up shot of myself feeling miserable. I ask for the wider view. A wider view! Yes! I'm not sure if that really had the effect I intended. Okay. Being the director, I look carefully at my set, looking up from my concerns to see the context of this moment. I become aware of the beauty of the day. That garden is pretty nice. I appreciate the charm of small details that add to the scene. The vase full of teasels that I put on the altar. The pileated woodpecker rat-a-tat-ing outside the window. The jolt of full sunshine. I amuse myself with planning how to frame the shot of me in the present moment. Be in the present moment. What do you sense? If I stay with that wider view, I begin to feel a releasing of the constriction of my energy. Seeing the beauty of the environment warms my saddened heart, and I see that although the situation is not what I want it to be, it is also not the whole of my life. I start again to notice the many other things that remain good about my life. I've broken the spell of depression. Whenever we feel miserable, we are in a way enchanted by an evil sorcerer, the sorcerer being ourselves. You are the sorcerer. The central characteristic of despair is that a small system, closed, circular, and repetitive. Out of all the thoughts in the world, our feelings of despair anger and resentment cause us to focus upon this one sorry merry-go-round of thinking, which is most guaranteed to go nowhere and help us not at all. Yet we end up riding the ride as though we were a child at the carnival. Within our own minds there is no external helper or kindly gatekeeper who stops the ride and lets everyone get off the ride. We know how to get on. Something triggers old pain in us, and away we go on the merry-go-round of woe, until we ourselves become that gatekeeper, and help ourselves off the ride. We are stuck in sorrow, and our energy body is constricted and blocked. We as players need to task ourselves to look up and away from the circular ride of thought when we become aware of feeling blue. We need to regain the context of our life in general. Only then can we get off the ride. It seems unlikely to me that life was ever worse or better than it is right now. We cannot excuse the feelings of despair within us because modern times make us feel like a number and cog in some impersonal machine. Certainly our days are full of suggestions that we are not important. But then, at what point in recorded history were we ever important? When did we get our needs met? Would our problems vanish if we lived in simpler times? Not at all. I do not believe anything is different now, emotionally speaking, than at other points in the timeline of history. And it's funny, people talk about all these benefits we've got from science, and yet the fundamental human condition hasn't really changed. And so, I suppose if we focus more on the energy of healing ourselves, and less on these external things that the science is all telling us about, like, I don't think it would be like a detriment to what we benefit from in terms of the science and modern technology. I don't think we'd lose that. I just think we'd have a better perspective and more discernment about what really matters in life. And that would actually enhance our scientific growth. Have we really had great technological growth of late? I mean, sure, there's the military, but we don't know how much help they've been getting from aliens anyway, right? There's secret technology they've been having growing way ahead of us. But real organic technological growth from society as a whole, like, we're mostly just getting like small improvements of technology we already have. Like, the sheer amount of technological progress in the early 20th century, it's huge, right? But it's kind of slowed down, right? Maybe it has to do with what's going on within us, why it slowed down. I don't have evidence on that, but that's just maybe. The outer events which form the story of our lives are really a shifting and evanescent backdrop for the abiding play of our emotions and feelings. The hero's journey. When we are well balanced, life feels free and strong, and there is a sense of steady progression. When we are losing our balance, we are off on the merry-go-round of sadness and suffering. We create the patterns of our suffering as naturally as our stomachs develop gas when they are digesting beans. In a way, our suffering is emotional dyspepsia. The treatment for gas is bicarbonate of soda, which pops the bubbles of gas and relieves the system. The treatment for emotional suffering is the calling upon a wider point of view, in which the clearer sight of our true situation pops the trouble bubbles that have clogged our energy body and relieves the constriction of the energy center. I mean, it also means bicarbonate soda means you're more gassy. You let out that gas, you feel better, right? Now, if that gas, see that gas is the negative emotions within you, let out what no longer serves, you feel better, lighter, healthier. The flat game board is full of these circular, repetitive rides of thought and feeling, which entrain our minds and squeeze all the joy out of our lives. When we find ourselves on such a ride, we need to take the time to look up and realize what's happened. Then we need to exercise our part as a player and get off the merry-go-round. The simple decision will open the energy body back up at the red ray level. And it feels so good to shake off the blues. This work takes time and courage. Negative emotions like hopelessness, helplessness, and despair are hard to experience and harder still to grasp, so that we become observers of our mental and emotional states rather than being captured by them. One technique I have used in working with these kinds of emotion is to ask that feeling to flow through me. If I have tears to cry, I find a private place and let them come. If I have anger or other emotions, I find the total privacy which allows me to have that conversation with myself out loud, rather than in my imagination, where it has been cycling all day. As we give our feelings the respect they deserve, and we listen to our own complaints carefully, we can often start fishing ourselves out of the misery and these moods simply because we have at last heard ourselves. Clearing the energy body is not the Vulcan trick of repressing all emotion and asking instead for logic to reign in one's mind. I can tell you that really doesn't help. I am perfectly logical at all times. I mean, that's the whole left brain thing, right? You must be perfectly rational and scientific at all times. Doesn't work. Okay. Rather, it is acknowledging all of what we are feeling and thinking, deliberately experiencing it all thoroughly, and then asking the mind to release the concern we have had about these feelings and thoughts. Again, it is central to prioritize clearing the energy body of blockage above solving the problems which are seemingly causing the suffering. In our emotional lives, the real sources of our upset tend to be hidden in patterns of sorrow and imbalance existing within us since childhood. It is no surprise then that some tangles in our life take a long time to unravel in terms of outer events. We may be working with stubborn tangles in various of our energy centers for years. But if we look within, really explore ourselves, really get more aware of ourselves, know ourselves better, that can really help. And where was I in that sentence? We cannot comb a tangle out simply by wishing it to be so. However, we can almost instantaneously clear the red ray center of constriction by invoking faith and a larger point of view, and by asking ourselves to become observers of ourselves and then healers and balancers of our constricted energy flow, so that we once again are flowing with good energy. And that is the chapter completed. So if you have listened to that, I thank you a lot, and you will benefit from having listened. I recommend the book, but it's up to you. It's a great chapter. I mean, it's a great start to talking about the chakras. I mean, it starts with the red ray, right? If that's constricted, like, it kind of renders the rest moot, right? This is, in a way, you could say, I mean, they're all important equally, but you could, in a way, say that the red ray is the most modern, because if this is constricted, unbalanced, the ramifications affect the rest of your energy body, right? And the rest of your life. So much of our life is affected by this. So the lessons in this are, I mean, it's great what Carla has provided for us with this. Oh, what a lovely woman. Yeah, she did some great work for us, and we can be grateful for that. She put her heart and soul into this. Hopefully I did it justice, because it's pretty good. And hopefully my experiment of having the sound in the background, that tone, hopefully, go to the end, put the bookmark in the right place, please. Yeah, hopefully you have got a lot out of it. It's good for me to read that again, because I feel like it's beneficial, you know, and you don't just want to read it once. So, I wish you well in these hard times. I wish you well through your inner work, and have faith. Goodbye.